Substantiate, to establish by proof or competent evidence. Welcome back to Substantiate. I'm the host, William Glasser, bringing you hypothetical sports matchups every single week. Yes, welcome back to the Substantiate podcast. I am the host, William Glasser, and we're back at it. I think this is week 3 of this summer season, and we're just going to continue on with the pod decks, and I'm using a new editing software and recording software today, so hopefully this is all good. And you may have noticed a couple weeks ago, which is after I recorded the last episode, but right before I recorded this episode, I updated the podcast artwork, the cover art for this podcast. So it has a picture of me on it, and it also has, obviously, the title, Substantiate, says hypothetical sports matchups, and in the picture of me, I'm holding a baseball bat and basketball. And then there's also a bracket there, and that's a different style, but left over from the old cover art, and that's just supposed to show the matchup. And now behind the bracket, there is a thought cloud, and that's supposed to show the hypothetical part of the matchup. So that's pretty cool. New artwork, sort of similar to the old one, new font. But basically, we are just going to continue on like normal. So let me get my first question up here. What was the last NBA game you went to? So you might actually remember this because just a couple months ago, I created an episode about it. But basically, I went to the Knicks at the Dallas Mavericks game, and if you want, you can go listen to that episode, but I'm not going to get into it too much on this episode. But again, that episode was called like going to a sports event in a waning pandemic, something like that. That was before they had full capacity, so it was interesting, and you can go take a listen to that episode if you would like. All right, continuing on in the hoop stack, who do you consider the most overrated player? So that's a tough one. I mean, I feel like in the NBA there's so many good players, and they're already ranked in terms of all-star, star, superstar, and it's very defined right now. But basically, I'm just looking at a list right now of who they have, so I can look at who some of the most overrated players are. I guess I would have to go with Paul George for the first one. I mean, right now he's at that point, the Clippers will probably be out of the playoffs by the time you're listening to this, but right now they're still currently playing the Jazz, and Paul George, he's not great, and he hasn't played well in the playoffs for them last year or this year, and I think that Kawhi Leonard is therefore maybe a little underrated because he takes a little bit of the fall from Paul George, which he shouldn't necessarily, but he does. So I guess I would probably have to go with Paul George there. I do think also that Jimmy Butler is a little overrated. He took them to the finals last year, and he played well last year, but this year, if you watch them, he wasn't the same, and, this year, the Miami Heat in general, they weren't a finals caliber team. They didn't play like the best team in the East. Like, last year, you could make an argument they did, although you could also make an argument they got lucky. And then they get swept by the Bucks. They couldn't even take one game. So, yeah, I guess he would be the second for me. All right, here we go with another question. This one, Back to the Future, make some predictions. So it doesn't specify what kind of predictions, so I'm obviously going to keep it sports related. So next year, I think the Lakers make it further in the playoffs. I still don't think they win next year. I just don't feel like they're going to have enough because this offseason they still aren't necessarily sure what to do. Do they run it back and hope that the injuries are better next year? Or do they make changes? So I don't see them making it to the finals next year. Maybe out of the first round, maybe not. But I guess other teams in the NBA, I think that, the Bucks are still playing right now. I think they're down 2 or 3-0 as of now to the Nets. Next year in the East, I just see the Nets just coming right back, and unless they have a significant injury, I think that they'll be just as good next year, as long as they don't lose any role players, so long as Blake Griffin comes back and stays healthy. If Nicholas Claxton, another year under his belt, more playoff experience under his belt, he's going to be one of the best young players in the NBA. And that dude, he's so strong, and he doesn't get that much playing time right now, but next year he could easily be a rotation player for the Nets. So I see the Nets definitely coming back again in the East. Other than that, in the East, I guess I'll stick to the West. It's hard to make predictions for the NBA because as of now, June 10th, the season, the postseason is still going on. So maybe in football, I don't know. Football, I feel like you usually need a couple weeks into the regular season to see if anyone is having a breakout season and what the main storylines are so far. So I think you really need to wait until maybe week 3 or 4 to make decent long-term predictions in the NFL. In the MLB, as of now, it's June 10th. I think that the NL West is going to be such an interesting division. As it currently sits, the San Francisco Giants have the best record in the National League. Again, June 10th at 4 p.m. They're 38-23. And then the top 2 wild card teams are the Dodgers and the Padres. Again, NL West. So this year could easily be a year with 2 wild card teams from the same division in the NL. So right now, the Giants are 38-23. The Dodgers are 36-25. So the Dodgers are 2 games back, but a game and a half ahead of the Padres, who currently sit in the second wild card spot. And then the next wild card spot, not the next, but the next team there is the Milwaukee Brewers. They're a game and a half back of the Padres, but they're tied in the loss column. It could be interesting there. The Giants are a surprise team this year, so we'll see how long they wind up lasting. But I think that one of those 3 teams will be in the World Series. So anyways, that's going to wrap up today's episode. Come back again next Wednesday. More episodes just like this. And until then, have a great week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Substantiate. The best way to help support the show is to, number 1, tell your friends about Substantiate. That is the number 1 way to support us. The second way is to leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Number 3, follow us at SubstantiatePod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.